Hi, my name is Rohit Bamnote and I'm working in Ubisoft as a producer on Assassin's Creed Nexus VR. I've been a part of Ubisoft journey since last decade or so. Over these years, I've got an opportunity to work on multiple brands. Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, Just Dance, and Ghost Recon are to name the few. I'm really happy to share the stage today with two of my talented colleagues who've been a part of this journey on creating a game on Assassin's Creed VR. We have Abhishek Goyal, who is our lead game designer, and we have Shobit Mukherjee, who is our senior game designer. Both of them have a decade of experience creating designs for multiple games. Now let me talk about us. Ubisoft has worldwide network which is spread across 30 countries, and we have about 45 studios that collaborates together in order to create the games, right? As you can see, demographically, we are very well spread across multiple continents. We have over 19,000 talented people working on multiple brands at this point. Let me take you through the journey of Ubisoft in India. Ubisoft is based in two of the major cities, Pune and Mumbai. Pune is set with the ambition of developing talents that are required for development as well as quality, whereas Mumbai is set with the vision of creating and collaborating on AAA games on the part of development. We have over 1,000 plus talented people who are working across various different disciplines that are essential to make the games, such as art, animation, programming, design, and production and quality as well. We've been involved in creating games on PC, on console, on mobile, and now in VR. I'm really happy to tell you all that Ubisoft Mumbai and Pune has achieved a milestone this year. This year, Ubisoft Mumbai is turning 5 years, and Ubisoft Pune is turning 15 years, and we are still growing strong. Let me take you through the life at Ubisoft India. I'm sorry, I think the audio is not there, so let me take it back. If you could just recheck if the audio can come. While we're waiting for the technical setup to be done, we take immense pride in building these games, which are so close to us. All of the people in Ubisoft Pune and Mumbai are working closely with various different brands. You can call all the brands that we've been a part of, we've been involved in making those. Thanks to the team, I guess we've got the technical problem resolved, so I would like to play and show you all the life at Ubisoft. Wait, where is it? Right, it's still not playing. I think I can skip it through. Let's just give them a minute. Woohoo! That was cool, right? We take immense pride in creating worlds for everyone. Whether you're a musician, whether you're an artist, whether you're a dancer, you're a casual gamer, or you're a hardcore gamer, we've got you all covered. Let me take you to a co-dev, which is co-development. And why it's important is because it helps us bring the world together. In reality, as I had mentioned before, we've been placed in 30 countries, and we have more than 45 studios. All of these studios come together and work in a co-development environment. This is a philosophy that we've been practicing for quite some time. Co-development allows us to increase our production knowledge. It allows us to create new opportunities. It gives us efficiency and enhance our expertise. It creates an avenue for us to share our knowledge, to share the culture, to share the values in common in order to make something that's pretty amazing for you to try. Now I'm coming closer to the topic of today's presentation, which is creating worlds in VR. I'm sure many of you here are developing games in VR, are gaming enthusiastic, and you would like to know more about it, and that's what we're here for. We're here to share you the information and insights of what we've learned while developing games in VR. Ubisoft is not new to VR at this point. We've been creating experiences and games since 2016 with Eagle Flight, and all the way to this point. These are some of the games that we've created in virtual reality. We also have some of the titles that we've made in order to provide you VR escape experiences. How many of you know escape rooms? Right? I think that's really nice, that's fantastic. So what we've done with escape experiences is to give you all the opportunity to be free and roam around, to use the mobility and experience different games that we have. Now let me come down to the game that we're very passionate about, the one that we've been working since last few years. That's Assassin's Creed Nexus in VR. We've been collaborating on Assassin's Creed Nexus since last few years with the talented team all across the globe. As I had mentioned before, co-development is at the heart of Ubisoft. It gives us immense opportunity, and it helps us allow to resolve many of the challenges when we imagine creating a gaming Assassin's Creed experience into a VR. And that's all there possible because we've got expertise coming in from all these areas. Ubisoft Mumbai, in particular, has been a major part of this collaboration. We have been involved since the start to the end of the development phase. We were in art, we were in animation, we were in programming, we were in design, and we were also involved in running the production and quality of this game. I'm really excited and happy to show you the gameplay trailer of Assassin's Creed VR, which is going to be setting the context for what to come next. I hope you all enjoy this.
Come in, this is the Brotherhood. Abstergo are working on a way to use ancient technology to profile people and align them to Templar beliefs.
The secrets of that technology are still hidden in the newly discovered memories of 3 assassins. Connor, the American revolutionary.
I must strike now.
Cassandra, the Greek Mystios.
The time for talking is over.
And the Italian nobleman Ezio Auditore.
It has been far too long.
You need to go undercover and stop Abstergo's plans at all costs.
Time to go to work.
Thank you so much, Rohit. That was amazing and a very interesting trailer, right?
I hope you
Excited.
enjoyed that. Yeah, that was awesome.
All right. Now, let's talk about our journey, our experiences, our learnings as developers when we jumped on this platform. Before that, let's do a quick, cool start.
Yeah.
Ah, Ivan. Perfect.
Go.
All right. So we as developers, we have our own experiences, our own learnings, our own assumptions that we went into while developing this game. And of course, being an Assassin's Creed game, it was not easy, right? Because Assassin's Creed is an emotion. It is an experience which is given to the players, to the audience, and it's not just established like that. It depends on its core pillars, which is stealth, exploration, and combat. But that's just not easy, right? How do you translate this on VR?
So VR obviously has some core sensory channels. You have sight, you have hearing, you have vestibular and proprioception senses. Basically means a sense of balance and your body's awareness. And ultimately, the high-level goal is translate an authentic Assassin's Creed experience onto the VR platform and make you feel like an assassin.
Well, let's talk a little bit more deeper into this. Why is this needed, right? Because as developers, you need to create that experience, that emotion, that drive, that'll translate this core experience onto a VR platform. But when we do that, how do we create this more, how we make this more fun? By finding novelty and fun. It's small objects, the smallest, the tiniest bit of interactions become fun. For example, picking that bottle up. Regular world, in the real world, you might not find it interesting. But in VR world, when you pick it up, that's interesting because that creates an avenue. That creates, an opportunity for you to interact with a lot more things, right? You become curious. You become more excited about the world. You want to see what's going to happen, what you can do in the world, right?
And what happens then is, so if you can grab the bottle, now it's incited, it's fired your curiosity up. And in the world, you're like, can I grab the extinguisher? Don't worry, I'm not going to do that. And you're wondering, what else can I grab? What else can I hold? What else can I interact with? So that curiosity in the context of the fantasy you present, like in the AC game world, every single interaction has the potential to become very meaningful. And what that builds is an autotelic playground. It's a really fancy word. We love fancy words. Makes us look smart. I will explain it. Autotelic, as we learned, means an action or an activity that is fun in and of itself. For example, skipping rocks. And in VR, it's throwing things at people.
Well, another fancy word is diegetic feedback. Now, what is that? What's diegetic feedback? Picking up a bottle is interesting. Picking up a stone is interesting. But it won't add any value in the game until and unless it has a purpose to it. You can do that, right? You can pick up a bottle. But how many times would you want to do that until and unless it's associated with a higher purpose? And that's what diegetic feedback means. Creating an organic environment for the player in which everything, every action feels a real life action. It makes sense. It adds value to it, right? Here's a brilliant example. Hidden Blade, right? Iconic to Assassin's Creed brand. In VR, although it translates beautifully, because with just a flick of your wrist, you'll see that beautiful blade coming out of your hand. It creates that connection. You love it, you enjoy it, you feel like an assassin.
And speaking of things, small things, grabbing them, throwing them, if you have feedback, and what we mean by feedback is there is an organic reaction to your action. In this case, you grab something and you throw it. It's cool, but when it creates, for example, a sound, a noise, when it reacts as it would in the real world, it allows for very interesting gameplay opportunities. So distractions, usually single button input. Over here, you grab it, you throw it, you can lure a guard now. And those series of actions, reactions, very immersive, very fun, very compelling, and leads to multiple gameplay opportunities, which, well, we enjoyed a lot.
All right. But doing so, what does that do, right? Giving so much control to player. What is it doing for you as developers, right? It's empowering your player. Your player becomes the hero. They embody that character. You start to feel like a master assassin, right? You start to embody that character. You start to feel like that character. The character's action become your action, and that's where you empower your player. Of course, in all the other games also, you are the hero. But why is it different in VR? Because of the embodiment of the character. Your actions are translated as your player's action, your character's action, right? Whatever you do will have an impact in the VR world. And that's where in VR it is so important for your players to be the hero.
And since you own your actions, you are the author of whatever the character is doing, the power fantasy becomes meaningful in a very unique way. How well you throw a knife at a guard, which you can, it comes down to how well and how quickly you can draw the knife, aim it, and throw it. So, doing this over time has a very organic learning curve. And what I mean by that simply is you do these actions again and again and again because they're autotelic. You enjoy doing them, you get better at them. The progression, the learning, the muscle memory that is built, it becomes very meaningful. Even at a subconscious level, you get better at being an assassin. And you'll hear a lot of that, master assassin and assassin, you'll hear a lot of that.
Right. And what does that do? Again, it creates a sense of being. You as a player, right? Your embodiment of master assassin, Ezio, Connor, Cassandra, you get to play those characters, you get to be those characters. That's exciting, that's fun, right? It creates a sense of being because of those actions, because of that close connect. You as a player, your character in the game, you become one, right? You embody that and that creates a sense of being. Simple example, right? Connor can simply use his tomahawk and throw that at a guard in mid-air, creating a perfect assassination opportunity, right? But that's just not it. That's not where it ends. You're not a master assassin yet.
And here is our creative director giving us a lovely demo of the meaning of master assassin and growing the learning curve that we spoke about. This is after a few hours of playing the game. This is using all the tools at your disposal, understanding how quickly can I draw, how can I aim, getting better at it, building the muscle memory to be able to pull off. What you see on screen is rather impressive. You are the one doing the kills, you are the one doing the air assassinations, wiping out 3-4 guards within the span or blink of an eye.
Some really cool actions, huh? You get to try all of that, by the way. It'll be really nice to do that in the game.
It is fun.
Now, all of this is very nice. These are all our learnings. But how did we get to that point where we're able to establish these learnings and share it with you, right? We as developers also have a journey, right? All of you, I'm sure you have already experienced this, but developers need to also go through a journey to be able to create anything which is worth your player's time. How do you do that? Getting used to the headset is a learning on its own because as developers, you need to understand what your players will enjoy. Your real life actions need to translate in the VR world as real life actions. They need to feel organic. They need to feel natural. And there's a whole lot of learning curve to it. It cannot just happen in one day because your body, your mind is learning, adapting to this new technology.
And we built our own muscle memory. So as we interacted, played, it was very important for us to understand and build the memory to understand what is fun, what isn't, what actions do we want to repeat. It's a mindset, a development as well as you spend more and more time working on Nexus. Ultimately, it's understanding what works for the player, what would they enjoy, and to do that, you have to adapt not just to the headset, but also what happens inside of it, understand the strengths of the platform and how to leverage them best.
Again, going back to the bottle example, it's fun to pick it up, but does it work for your player, right? I mean, doing these actions is fine, but you need to create more, right? And that's where the last of our adaptability comes in, right? It's finding fun in simple inputs, which can create a very meaningful and a powerful output, right? Flick of your wrist, it deploys the assassin's blade. There's a very interesting feature in Nexus, which we often talk about. You know what you can do? Just do this and bring closer to your mouth and it'll whistle. That's a very interesting take in the game, and you'll get to experience that again when you play the game on your own. But that's empowering your player, right? With a very simple input, it creates a very powerful output as an assassin. Now,
To be quite honest, we just love the visuals of this, so we said we put it up. But Eagle Flight, we are a game that our studios developed. Uh, it's a perfect example of simple input, powerful output. The way you control the eagle, the flight, is through your head, and the experience of flying through the streets of Paris is incredible as you move around like a bird. It's a wonderful translation of the fantasy.
A great example. In fact, we love this video, so we just wanted to share it,
Yeah,
right?
honestly, it's not right to this.
All right. Now coming down to VR truths. I'm not going to take it. You take it.
Like rock, paper, scissors again? So VR truths. These are basically axiomatic statements that we made over the course of development to kind of give us a North Star to allow us to make decisions, design decisions effectively that stay true to what our initial goal is, Assassin's Creed on VR. And they're largely hyperbolic, and some of them are like basic design principles that translate across all genres and disciplines. But they're very important, and sometimes we forget the basics. So we start with the first one. Comfort is king.
1:3.
is equal to 3, yeah. Mathematicians here.
Don't scratch your head. We'll
Yeah,
clear that
we'll
out.
get to the proof in a bit. Next one. We have fun everywhere. Like this is, of course, no brainer. And embrace VR, and we'll dive into all of them right after this.
Let's talk a little bit more about comfort. Comfort's really important, especially when we are in the VR world. We are in this when we are adapting to this new technology. And why so? Because players' comfort is the key to any good game design. You cannot have your players be uncomfortable and expect them to enjoy the experience. That won't happen. If a player is uncomfortable, they simply drop out. They don't want to experience it anymore. You need to create an avenue for your players to be comfortable at the same time enjoy the experience. How do you do that? Of course, comfort now for us as developers have evolved. Back 5 years back, 6 years back, 10 years back probably, VR was an emerging technology. But in today's time, VR, the headsets, the technology has emerged to a point where it creates an avenue for you as developers to challenge your player, but at the same time, comfort is the key. But it helps because technology has evolved a lot, right? Comfort in the VR context, what it means is to simply create an enjoyable experience for all players. And we at Ubisoft take great pride in ensuring that our games are comfortable to all our players and it reaches a mass audience. How do you do that? It's a problem statement because your brain is trying to adapt to something which is new. You as players, you as developers, in real life, all our actions are meaningful to us. But when you're wearing a VR headset, it's very different because in headset, you're probably standing, but in real life, you're sitting. There's a mixed signal. You don't know what to do. In VR headset, you're running, but again, you're sitting. It creates a lot of mixed signal. But having a good comfort option or creating a comfortable environment for player really helps. Frame rate, again, crucial to creating a good experience because in real life, your brain is digesting everything at a very high frame rate. But in VR world, anything under 70 FPS and you kill the experience. And lastly, ergonomics. I think my friend loves ergonomics. I'll let him speak about it.
Yeah, it's a topic which is very
Close to him.
I obsess over. So ergonomics, of course, when you first think about it, you think about the controller, the headset, is it comfortable to wear? But it extends beyond that. It extends into the game or experience as well. There are certain actions in real life which are uncomfortable, and naturally they might be uncomfortable in VR as well. So be mindful of that. If there is something that, for example, your game is about scratching your back for like 2 hours, you may want to revise the co-pillars there. So be aware of the ergonomics of the in-game movement and controls as well is really important.
Just to add to this, understand it this way, right? Grabbing an arrow from your back is fine. It's comfortable. It's natural. It's a real-world action translated in the virtual world. But if, as developers, oh, let's make this really cool. Let's put your quiver over here. Doing this action may feel cool for the first time, but try to do that for an hour and you'll be tired. It's not a comfortable experience.
Yeah. Right. There is an overlap between comfort and accessibility. Comfort is a very broad term. It's to ensure that everyone is comfortable playing the game or enjoying the experience. Accessibility is about inclusion. It's about ensuring that everyone, especially people with disabilities, can enjoy it. And at Ubisoft, we are dedicated to make sure that Literally everyone can come and play our game and have a good time. If players aren't comfortable, they will not enjoy the game. That's just I think it's the truth for every
just the
platform,
truth.
but
It's just the reality.
It's more true for the VR platform. And here we have an example of the leap of faith. I'm sure this is the iconic move that people familiar with the brand will be aware of. And translating this into VR was a massive challenge, as you can imagine. You're jumping off a tall point and heading down. We were lucky to have collaborated with an exceptionally bright bunch of people, our co-dev partners, the 3Cs.
We call them
and
wizards,
Comfort
by the
team.
way.
Actual wizards.
Yeah.
Some of them, yes. Who made this a reality. And 16th November, when Nexus comes out, and hopefully you guys can play it, you'll see that this is not going to make you throw up.
I mean, it was a difficult challenge, of course, but we at Ubisoft, we took that challenge head on and we created a brilliant experience where you all get to enjoy it. All right, so what do we take away from this? Why is comfort so important? Right, so optimize your game, make sure that your game is optimized, it has an optimal frame rate, it stands out and it creates a perfect experience for your players. Spatial awareness. Spatial awareness is designed, and I'm sure a lot of people are aware of it already, but when you're creating a game, make sure that the information that's given to your player is crisp. It's not creating confusion, especially in VR, because your player cannot do these sharp turns, right? They need to be aware of what their next steps are, where they need to go, how they need to go, and what avenues does it create for them.
Just to add to the spatial awareness point, it's the person's awareness of where they are in a given environment, and designing your spaces to take that into account and your experience to take that into account, where it's naturalistic. You're not asking them to do awkward stuff like, I mean, this is not that awkward, but over time it becomes difficult. Sharp turns, like you mentioned.
Sharp turns.
It can be problematic. And then we come to the framing and composition, which is tied to this. So whenever you move around or when you have players moving around your game spaces, it is important to frame it well, to understand the composition of what they're seeing, what information they're taking in, so they can comfortably and at a subconscious level navigate it. Because in the real world, we are used to reading architectural and certain signs like steps. I know what I need to do here. That needs to be translated into VR as well. The better you do it, the more comfortable it is for them to engage with the game world. Forget about the nitty-gritties of how do I get from point A to point B, and just lose themselves in the mechanics and systems you create.
And be really mindful of the session duration. I mean, climbing a wall in VR is fun. In Assassin's Creed, it's crazy fun. But try to do that for an hour, and it won't be. A great example.
You want to take this?
No, so parkour, again, so in this example, we highlight the fact that framing and spatial awareness is important, and always ensure that within the frame, your golden actions, your key actions are for player to understand clearly. Don't depend on their peripheral vision. Don't depend whether player will be able to understand something on their extreme left or the extreme right. Have things for them to translate easily.
As you can see, we are moving from point to point. It's readable.
Readable, right.
Yeah. 1:3, yeah, the fun one, my favorite one. Cognitive overload in virtual reality. So we'll quickly figure out what that is. I'm sure most of you already know, but we love to talk. Can we move to the next one? Thank you. So what's the physiological process? Effectively, it's your perception, sight, sound, hearing, all the information going in and into your memory. It's affected by certain factors like your emotional state, how much attention you're paying at that particular time, your motivation, you're not really into it. And it goes into your memory, right? You're trying to churn it, you're trying to figure out what do we need to do, what do I do? And that's the physiological process of, simply put, making decisions. And we have cognitive limitations. Unfortunately, we're not in the era of cybernetic organisms yet. So our perception is subjective. Our attention is scarce, and our memory is fallible. I forgot that.
We are no experts in this, but this comes down from a point that as a player, you need to translate this information and put it in your memory. But this whole information process is affected by multiple external factors as well. And that's where we say your memory is fallible, because your players won't be able to remember everything that they're doing. So you need to constantly feed your player with the information. Now, why is that important, right? Because it helps you manage the cognitive overload. In VR, why we say 1:3 is because your player, in real life, picking up a bottle doesn't matter, right? Picking up a mic doesn't really impact you. But in VR, you're doing all of this and processing the entire world around you at the same time. So picking up a bottle, understanding what actions are associated with it, and what can you do next, that creates a cognitive overload, right? So you need to manage it. Of course, challenge your players. In today's time, the technology has evolved to a point where you can start challenging your players and create these experiences, but at the same time, make sure that's comfortable. How does it manifest in VR?
Yeah, rock, paper, scissors again. uh, well, just quickly, let's talk about in VR. Why is this? It's applicable across anything, right? But why in VR? Why are we talking about it here? Largely because the strength of the VR game or an experience is the ownership of actions we talked about earlier. You are the one jumping, running, assassinating, drawing a weapon, and fighting. So that's a lot of actions that you are doing, and that's a strength. That's something we just embrace. There's a limited field of view. You're in first-person perspective. It's no godlike peripheral vision in third-person games. And user interface, the HUD, cannot be always used as a crutch to display relevant information. It's not a silver bullet. The OODA loop, it's a term we borrowed to look professional and smart from the American Air Force. It basically stands for observe, orient, decide, and act, the cycle of decision-making that players often do when playing your game. And effectively, it's about observing what's happening, orienting, okay, how do I navigate this, deciding what to do, the right course of action, and acting. And at any point, there's a lot of information coming in. Like, for example, if there was the fourth screen here, I'd have a meltdown. This is more than enough for me. And at any point, if this is disrupted, it becomes a bit much. It goes from a challenging, engaging, fun, potential state of flow into frustration and the player not being able to understand, what do I do? There's too much. I'm not having fun.
Of course, everyone loves Iron Man, right? But imagine doing that in real life. I mean, we are no Tony Stark. We don't have a super ability to process the information. He can, we can't, right? So imagine having such elaborate UI right in front of your eyes. You'll probably crash into a building and die. But he cannot. He's Superman, right? He's an Iron Man who can do this. He can process that much information.
Aside from wealth, that's a superpower.
His superpower,
Yeah.
yes.
No cognitive overload for Tony Stark.
Yes. So you need to be really mindful of what you present to your player and how you present it. It can easily create an overload, but if you balance it, you manage it well, it can create a good avenue as well. So manage your cognitive overload. That's the key takeaway. Of course, challenge your players, but manage the information flow that you provide to them at one point of time.
Designed for readability, your environments, your spaces, your NPCs, at least in the context of Nexus VR, make sure the actions are readable, make sure the environment is readable. And by readability, we basically mean a visual language across the game that players over time and very quickly, hopefully, pick up that this is where I can run and jump, this is where I can climb, this is where I can swing. It
Consistent
makes it
with your
easier.
visual language, right? Decide on it and be consistent with it.
Yeah. And be generous. If you feel that a particular race is, you're going to give them 10 minutes to complete, make it 12. Allow some time, allow some buffer for failure.
US
Be generous.
developers have been developing their game for number of hours you've put in, right? It's easy for you to do certain challenges, but then just be generous for your players to experience it, right? Lastly, clear, consistent rule. Do not break the flow of the rules. Do not create rules which keep on changing. Do not challenge your players' cognitive skills, right?
Yeah.
I mean, do challenge it, but don't change the rules. You cannot have a different gravity in Telangana and probably a different gravity in Maharashtra, right? It needs to be consistent, similar to the VR world, which is an entire world in itself. So build it on a consistent set of rules.
If I can grab an orange, let me grab an apple. And here we have the example of reloading in Nexus to stress the actions that a player does to pull something off, which is really cool, which is getting your bow out, drawing your arrow, knocking it, drawing the string, aiming and firing. This is a lot of fun to do, but this gives you an idea that, hey, for the power fantasy to be really meaningful, to really shine, they need to do a bunch of actions. Now, over time, we need to stress that this cognitive overload, over time, it reduces as players get more used to your platform, used to your systems. They generally get better at it, become subconscious, and that is truly powerful, a really cool experience when you do it without thinking. But you have to be cognizant that this is something you're asking the players to do. So
When
design
next-
the challenges.
Yeah, I think in Nexus, how we solve this is just ensuring that your real life actions can be translated as is, and it feels like a
Very
real
true.
life action. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're not creating problems for your player.
Intuitive actions and mechanics are key. If in real life you expect players, and we all have the expectation that you draw a sword like this, maybe it's a good idea to have your character or the
Draw a
sword
sword like
placed over here on your holster.
Yeah. Fun everywhere. Interesting, because we often encounter this term, let's make our games immersive, right? What is immersive, right? It's just ensuring that your players deep dive into the game and lose track of time, right? They understand the game. They become one with the game. They become one with the experience. And that's where immersive experiences come in. And how we try to translate is by creating fun everywhere. A very simple statement, but your real life actions, which we've been talking about until now, should feel like real world actions, right? You should build around the physicality, right? Your actions needs to be translated into the world. So if you're bending, your character should also bend. If you're moving your hand, a great example that we gave earlier of a whistle, a simple action creates a very meaningful output. That's immersive.
Perception tricks to increase believability. So effectively how you render your world, if anything you can do to make it more believable, make the realization aid what the player is seeing and what they're thinking, it's going to be perfect for creating a sense of immersion that we would like. And players are going to play. Curiosity invites tampering. I think this is the universal truth.
Yeah.
People will try and break your game, whether they do it knowingly or unknowingly. Especially in VR, we've noticed this a lot. They will explore. They will test the boundaries of your game's world. So curiosity, it invites tampering. And players have expectations. If you are simulating a real world or any world with some sort of internal logic that you establish, they will have a relatability. So they will expect things in the world to react or behave as they would in real life, outside of the platform. And that's the power of the platform, but it's also something we need to be aware of.
Lastly, player agency, right? Give player the freedom of movement. Give player the freedom of expression. Let players explore the world. Create that autotelic playground for players to, be around their curiosity and be there in the game and play with their curiosity and explore everything that you have for them.
Yeah, what agency basically translates into is the degree of mobility you provide the player, degree of control. And it doesn't just extend to that, hey, our character can run, jump, climb. It comes down to the full body realization. Maybe you can see the legs, you can see the arms, you can see the finger poses. And modern VR hardware, we are seeing it is allowing that. So what happens is that player expression, which is really important, it doesn't have to do with the gameplay itself, but as they're walking down the street, they see an NPC, and the NPC says something, and if they can shrug, if they can wave, if they can express themselves beyond just stabbing them, it creates a very engaging experience.
I think full body realization is really interesting because it helps you embody the character, the player, the figure that you want to be. And lastly is narrative engagement, right? Because imagine in a VR world, if you're put as a player in front of a cutscene, that's not immersive. That's going to probably break the flow. Make your players feel part of the world. Be part of the world's narrative. Be part of the world's realization. Make them feel connected to the world. And by narrative, we just don't mean the story. It's about the overall realization. It's about the overall world narrative that's set for them. All right, coming down to our key takeaways on this. Reward curiosity. All the actions that players are doing, it needs to be rewarded. I don't mean just give them something. It can be visual gratification. It can be autotelic gratification. But just create opportunities, moments for them to be gratified.
And for that, you would need cohesive, seamless environments that behave and act in a manner that meets player expectations. So they're curious. The better realized your world is, the they'll have a better time at playing around with it. So let them have fun. It's a little intensive, no doubt. takes a lot of hard work, but it really pays off for your players. And ultimately,
Right.
that's the goal. Freedom of expression, like I mentioned, the ability to gesture. It may not be important for your experience to be able to simulate the finger movement. If it's a melee combat game, you should grab the sword. But the ability to grab a sword and point at an NPC before you behead them is extremely powerful. So allow them to move, allow them to gesture, allow a full suite of
Give them the
realization.
freedom to express themselves in the world.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
it. Lastly, again, coming down to narrative engagement. Just make sure that your player is engaged no matter where in the game they are. Awesome.
Embracing VR.
Interesting one. We
No
say it
brainer.
together.
No brainer here. Of course, let's build a VR game. Let's embrace it. We talk about leveraging the platform, and to kind of like round it all, a lot of these are design truths, like just no brainers. Like yeah, well, of course, but it's important to realize that sometimes you lose track of the basics, which is why you're stressing elements which are doubly important when it comes to designing something cool for VR. Maximize unique VR mechanics, right? If you're translating a fantasy over into virtual reality, know the fantasy well enough that hey, doing this in VR, that would be really cool. If you were a magician, if you're playing Harry Potter, if
Yeah.
in VR, if you can do the gestures, because then you're reliving and you're stepping in the shoes of the character.
Right. It's just very important to create those opportunities, identifying what works and we are creating those opportunities for the player. And of course, players will be trolling the environment, so let them do it. Let them have fun doing it, right?
expect the
Create
unexpected.
that avenue for them.
Lean into the architecture. This is a really cool one. Usually we think of at least traditional game development and working on third-person action adventure games, cover-based shooters. The architecture is we think of in white boxes. We think of this is a place that you can hide and take cover in. In VR, the connection with the architecture of the game world is rather unique because the players are not thinking of it like piece of cover. You're not thinking of it as something I can climb. It eventually gets there, but they have a very relatable expectation. So, for example, if you have a building, right, and it's a medieval building, players will expect that it's going to be made of rocks and I should be able to climb it. So you can lean into the architecture by allowing your players to use it.
We literally mean that. Lean into the architecture.
Yeah, you see in a bit.
Never forget audio because yes, again, and we are like we already talked about, it makes use of all your senses, right? And audio creates this perfect, harmony between your actions and the feedback that you receive. So depend on the audio. Make sure that your audio is really powerful and creates that impression of all the actions that player is doing. Be consistent in your realization. Again, set a language, stick to it, make sure it's consistent. If player can hide behind something, they should be able to hide behind that throughout. If player can pick something, and if there's an object right next to it, player should be allowed to pick that as well. Create that autotelic playground for them so that they don't have to scratch their head and understand, okay, I can pick this up, but not this. If I can pick up that bottle, I should also be able to pick up this mic, right?
And always ask why VR. Why would it be compelling in VR? Why would we translate this into VR? Always ask yourself before designing any feature or content, are we leveraging the strengths of the platform? Will it be fun to do?
Yeah, leverage the strengths of VR.
Sometimes, yeah, and sometimes we forget, but yeah.
A brilliant example, we talked about leaning into the architecture, but imagine you as a player literally trying to hide behind the wall and identifying or, just waiting for that perfect opportunity to make a kill.
Yeah, to add to that, as I mentioned, so the architecture here provides a little window for you to peek through. Being able to grab it and peek as you would in real life is incredibly fun and it never gets old.
But why is this important in VR, right? This happens in all the other Assassin's Creed games as well. But in VR, your actions are being translated because you're not just pressing a button to hide behind an object, you're literally doing it. You're bending down, hiding behind an object, and waiting for that opportunity. That's where it creates that strength. That's why we need to embrace VR. All right, final takeaways. Playground, right? Gameplay should be around player. Don't disconnect your gameplay and your player. Don't let your players look for it. Always have it presented to them. Always have this opportunity around them.
Preserve presence. Presence is effectively that feeling of being completely lost. If you can build immersion and immersion is full, then your players feel one with the character. Make sure the features you design, the systems, the mechanics, the feedback loops that you have, the channels that you have, they preserve it. They're not bringing the player out of the experience. An example would be a pop-up, a UI interface that pops up like, hey, good job, you've completed this. And that immediately takes them out. You're thinking like, hey, I'm rewarding the player with like information.
Right?
You're not. You're preserving. You're destroying presence.
And lastly, audio-visual harmony. Create that, you create that avenue for your player to be able to experience that, where your audio and visuals go hand in hand and create that experience.
To speak to the
Go back.
audiovisual harmony, I just wanted to add from personal experience. We of course know that hey, we're designing a feature. There'll be some SFX or audio cue related to it as part of feedback, and we sometimes wouldn't focus enough on it in VR. But we then quickly realized that spatial audio, being able to hear something and detecting things, is incredibly important, incredibly fun, because
It's
then all
really
your senses
important.
are engaged.
Yeah. In a nutshell, to sum it up, of course, your comfort's king. 1:3. I think we've proved it now for all the mathematicians.
I
Don't
hope so.
scratch your head anymore.
These are hyperbole because hyperbole is fun. So yeah.
Fun everywhere and embrace VR. Don't be scared of it, guys. As developers, we need to start embracing the technology, start embracing the platform, and create that opportunity and challenges for your player to enjoy. Don't be scared of it. Create something you think will be fun. Just go for it and do it. We did that. You should try it.
Yeah, and to wrap it up because it's telling me to. Time is up. We'll end with a quote that was really inspiring for us. Virtual reality is the first step in a grand adventure to the landscape of imagination. Imagination is a fertile playground. It's what's in our head, what we're imagining, all our fantasies, and virtual reality allows you to like actually open up the gateway to that. And we would encourage everyone to push the limits. Of course, there will be obstacles for realizing everything, for building systems and mechanics, comfort, like we all mentioned. But push the boundaries. It's the technology is evolving.
And you can do that now.
Rapid rate,
Technology
yeah.
has evolved to a point that we as developers can now leverage it. We can create more comfortable
Don't limit
experience. We
yourself.
can create more immersive experience. We can do the full body embodiment of the character. And that's what you'll also experience when we release Nexus VR on November 16th.
Yes, November 16th.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Questions? Yes, please.
Yeah. 4.
Okay, cool. We can start with Q&A. Can we see some hands? All right, I see some hands there. Let's go, Mit.
Hi, sir. Really excited for the game. And when we are playing as Cassandra or any other players in the game, does it have any connection to the actual game? Like if I'm playing as Cassandra, does it have any connection or story relation? Or like if we do something, the XP system helps us there in the game. And can we change some visual systems like the armor system or the gauntlets we wear? Can we change things like that?
Thank you so much. You clearly are passionate about AC. Unfortunately, we don't have the answer for that here.
You have to wait for the game to release
Yeah.
and probably
Thank you so much.
experience that on your own.
Yeah.
My question was that we know that 40 to 70% of VR gamers face a lot of motion sickness and nausea. I wanted to know how you tried to counter that in this game.
So we personally cannot speak because to the actual implementations of the comfort features as we were one of the component teams, but we did work with, like you mentioned, exceptionally talented team members, our co-dev partners, who were focused entirely on comfort. For example, I can speak to this one, is the teleportation. So people who do suffer motion sickness when you move from point A to point B, when you're running and your brain's getting mixed signals like, this is moving, but I'm not. Teleportation allows us to mitigate that. So that's an example of a whole suite of features to combat things associated with,
You need to be able to understand the problem and then build around it. And in Nexus, we have done that. So you'll experience that very soon.
Our approach to this is by providing multiple options on the comfort side for players to tune into, to create that perfect balance that would allow them to be comfortable
It's highly
and enjoy
customizable, highly customizable.
as much as possible. So, yeah.
Awesome. Do we have any questions from the back? We're trying to cover all areas. Nothing here. Okay, I see a gentleman in front.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful presentation. So Assassin's Creed as a pre-existing IP and a franchise is already has a very diegetic elements to it. Like you are playing as a character who is then again embodying another character. So the HUD and the fantastical elements of the game are really well explained in the world of the game. So from the outside, it makes a lot of sense to build it as a VR game. Players will feel like this is very intuitive. Yeah. This makes a lot of sense. But as a developer, what challenges did you face, or was it as smooth sailing as it seems to translate that experience to a VR while also managing the player expectation of having that Assassin's fantasy that every player, Assassin's Creed player has?
I can speak to some of it, and of course,
I think it was a learning curve for us as developers as well. We're trying to understand what works for the player and how the smallest of actions, like we talked about, will make a massive impact. So it was just about learning, and we as developers were also learning while we were developing this game.
That's the biggest one, actually, because we've had a background in very traditional game development, mobile, PC, console. And when you put the headset on, when you start realizing, because obviously we assume that it's going to be immersive, you can do a lot, there's some really cool actions you can pull off, but that's just the surface level of it. And as developers, it was a mindset change almost, where we were like, hey, why VR? Exactly. Why do we want it in VR? What are the things from Assassin's Creed that translate really well? And an example that we gave was the hidden blade, which in the normal games, I mean, you deploy the blade, you can see it, it looks really cool. In Nexus, it took on a whole new meaning. When we deployed it, you could see it really close, you could turn it around, and actually you could try and touch the tip, and if you have two of them, you can sharpen them.
It doesn't hurt you
against each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was the adaptation and identifying, hey, this is really fun. Let's lean into it. Let's build more of it. It was the identification after the mindset change, like what is fun, and building it. And of course, the tech challenges.
I don't think anyone, he talked really brilliantly about the hidden blade, but I don't think anyone over here, while playing any of the earlier Assassin's Creed games, ever worried about deploying a blade. But that's where it's so important. It becomes so powerful because in Nexus VR, when you deploy it, it's so personal, right? It gives you that control.
Over the course of development, I think we've been creating so many playgrounds with the bite-sized experiences that allows us to tune in to the perfect experience that we can get. Right. It's trying and failing and trying again till the point you get that real essence. So it's all about that.
Just one last, and I hope this helps, is when I talk about mindset shift, there was a perception we had of VR based on our very limited experience of what the technology can offer. We'd heard about and played some experiences, some escape room games, really well done, really well realized. But we had to break out of it because we were very committed. The entire team, our creative direction was super committed in ensuring that the Assassin's Creed experience translates. Like it is a full-fledged AC game. So we had to break some perceptions of ours, our assumptions, and let's build it. So you have to challenge yourself, shift the mindset a little.
And having an internal team allows us to kind of have the playtest been planned internally just to see if everybody feels it right and get more feedback to make it even better for players. Yeah.
I hope that answers.
Okay, fantastic. We have time for one more question. And one thing I'd need from the audience, once you get a mic, could you also tell us
We
about what
recommend
your
rock,
name,
paper, scissors, whoever wins.
as well as with that, could you
It
tell us
always
your name
works.
and where you're from, just to the team?
Okay, so my name is Shobit. I'm a final year student in SRM.
You'll do well.
Please, Shobit.
Yeah. So I've worked I've been trying to learn game development and design. I've worked in both the areas. I've also worked a little on VR development. My question was regarding the design process. Personally, when I did VR development in my particular design process, I just went, okay, I've designed games for PC and mobile. I might as well go for the same design process and use VR as an input device. It did not translate well, in my opinion. So, what would you recommend that I change in that particular design process? What exactly would be different in the design process?
I take this. I just have one thing to add. Is mic on? All right. That's a really good question because that was something we asked ourselves. And some of the truths that we put up were essentially adaptations of basic design principles. So I would recommend you focus on, or anyone, this is what helped me, is first of all identify what are the compelling aspects of the fantasy or the experience you're trying to create. Try them out in VR. Like, is this actually fun? And narrow down what would you like to focus on. Like, this is really fun to do, and you will explore. You will discover that, man, this particular action, like this sword swing, is cool. But if I do like a whole spin move, that's way more fun. That's just a sliver of an example. So experiment, try, because as far as the design process, there wasn't a Bible like, hey, this always works every single time. I think the closest we had was that.
Just identify the bits that work for you, for your game,
Work
for
for
your
you,
character.
yeah.
That's it.
Start small and then grow it gradually.
Actually, yeah, since small things are compelling in VR, you can start small.
Okay, we have
Build
time
upon
for
that.
one more question over here.
Hi, I'm Rushali from IIT Madras, and here is my friend Arjun from IIT
Hi.
Mandi. I am
Hello.
asking my question on behalf of him because he has little bit disabilities while speaking. So he want to ask, how do we implement realistic stealth mechanic? Would the NPCs need line of sight to your body or just see a part of you? That's he's asking.
So, see, it's not as simple as you say, right? It depends. Again, you need to understand what you want to cater to your players. For us, it was a learning journey as well. We understood what we want to cater, right? We understood what, as a brand, what as an Assassin's Creed brand, we want our players to experience. It's as simple as that. You need to, as developers, understand what you want your players to experience, and accordingly you can take those decisions. Of course, technology today allows you to do that. You can do a full body realization, you can embody the actions, you can do so much more, but it comes down to the decisions that we as developers take as to what we want to cater to our audience.